Agoa. It kicks off today. That is where Sakina is, out and about at Nasrec. Sophie Mokoena is also out and about there. The president is expected at around 8 o'clock. Let's cross over to Sakina now, just to give us an idea of what it looks like there. I mean, we've been hearing about this for so long, SK. There's been such a build-up to Agoa. It's finally here. Talk to us. How is it going there?
Well, good morning, Leanne. And as you say, we are at Nasrec. And of course, it's right next to FNB, where the Springboks made their final stop yesterday. And yours truly actually hopped over, and it was absolutely fabulous. But of course, back to the business end of things here at the Nasrec Expo. And this is, of course, where the South African government, in association with the United States government, are hosting the 2023 Agoa Summit. This is the African Growth and Opportunity Summit. And it's taking place, of course, started yesterday until tomorrow. Now, Leanne, if we look at the theme for this year's summit, it is partnering to build a resilient, sustainable and inclusive Agoa to support economic development, industrialization and quality job creation. And if you look at some of the opportunities that exist, we're talking, of course, about 35 African countries who are part of the Agoa agreement. At this particular event, we are expecting about 2,000 participants over the course of these 3 days to walk through this exhibition hall and participate in all the other engagements that will be taking place. But of course, I'm not alone. I'm with the SABC's International Editor, Sophie Mokoena, who's of course going to help me talk through some of the more talking touch points, as it were, around Agoa. Sophie, good to have you with us. Thanks for coming through so early. So, against a backdrop of a nation, a state that perhaps a few months ago, it wasn't so clear that we would be actually hosting Agoa.
Yes, indeed, as you are aware that there were lots of issues behind the scenes when preparations were done in relation to this conference. But here we are. We knew then that it was not going to be easy for the United States of America to decide to move this conference to another venue because it takes time to prepare. But secondly, as many have pointed out, much as there are issues between South Africa and the United States of America, it is important for these two countries to find a way to mend the relations and strengthen the relations, because South Africa is quite important in terms of the global geopolitics, but also in relation to trade and investment on the continent. It is the powerhouse in terms of manufacturing. It is a big country in relation to the GDP. It is an important gateway to Africa. But also you have many multinational companies in South Africa, including those companies from the United States of America. And therefore, the relationship with the US is quite important. And many have also pointed out that we know that the United States of America wants to strengthen its relations with the African countries. You know that during the tenure or the presidency of Donald Trump, the relation was a bit cool, or there was no focus on Africa. And therefore, the Biden administration is trying to rekindle or strengthen that relationship. And you know that during that lull, countries such as China, Russia did make inroads, and therefore I think the United States of America is trying to recapture the lost ground. And therefore, if indeed they want to strengthen the relations with Africa, you cannot ignore South Africa, because that will be a clear demonstration, if you strengthen the relations, if you continue with Agoa, that you really mean business. And yesterday, in fact, on the 1st of November, President Biden issued a statement saying that whether people like it or not, Africa is a go-to. Africa is on the move, and all eyes are on Africa, and no country wants to be left behind in terms of strengthening its relations with Africa. And South Africa is an African country.
So speaking of the Biden administration, two things. Firstly, the fact that President Biden himself is not here, or some of the murmurs are that people would have expected, as they say, and I'm not sure what that means in real terms, but perhaps a higher level, a delegation from the United States. But also the fact that the Biden administration announced on the 31st of December that they are looking to remove beneficiary status from 4 countries, Uganda, the Central African Republic, Niger, and Gabon. So what sort of impact is that likely to have for those countries, but also the perception about how seriously the Biden administration actually takes Agoa?
Well, there's a criteria and rules around this agreement. And you know that Americans, they always have those do's and don'ts, whatever they do. And let's start with the delegation. I must say I am also disappointed that, yes, you have the delegation here, but I was looking at a more high-powered delegation if you really want to strengthen relations with Africa, because it's not about South Africa, this agreement. It is about the continent. And much as perhaps one wouldn't have expected President Joe Biden to come because of the current geopolitics, the war in Ukraine, now the matter in the Middle East. He was out of the country recently in the Middle East. And today we know that the Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, is back in the Middle East. There's so much happening. But I think I was expecting that Antony Blinken will come, and there were reports that he's likely coming to South Africa before end of the year, and I thought this is the moment, particularly because he is the one who launched that campaign to revive the relations between South Africa and between Africa and the United States of America. And therefore, yes, a bit of disappointment in terms of a decision, a recommendation. It is a recommendation that is going to be entertained or discussed before the Congress, where President Biden is saying that he wants to exclude those countries. One, we know that with Gabon recently because of the coup, the same with Niger. And of course, the CAR, you know that the relationship between the US and Russia, not so good, and therefore you have the activities of Wagner in CAR, almost like their base, and that was expected. In relation to Uganda, when they passed that bill that discriminates against LGBTQI, it was expected that U.S. will respond, and this is how U.S. is responding. But I saw the response from Uganda saying they were not officially informed, or they haven't been officially informed, but they will soldier on, and they won't be dictated to by any country in terms of how they should govern or take decisions in relation to their country. But it is going to hit hard, particularly to those people in the coffee industry and the small business in particular.
And I guess that's what it's about. You know, if we look around us, we are in the exhibition hall. Some of the exhibitors, as you are being shown at the moment, there's quite a bit going on. You have multinational companies here, but you also have smaller entities, small business enterprises who are also here to try and, of course, expand their business opportunities, Sophie, and many of them. And the question for me, and I'd love to get in touch with some of them later on, just to look at what opportunities exist and how easy or how difficult it is for them to actually make inroads into the U.S. market.
I think that is why many are saying this agreement, not 10 years, but rather 20 years, because you can then have a chance or a process to take on board small businesses. Because when you look at the African continent, it is small businesses that are carrying the economy of this continent. You go to other countries, people survive because of small businesses. And therefore, I think even South Africa is gravitating towards that. And therefore, it is important to take on board small business because they have become a lifeblood of commerce. They've become a lifeblood of the economy of their respective countries.
All right, and that's where we're going to leave it for now. Just a bit of background and the backdrop against which this year's summit is taking place.